This is Three Dog.
How can I help?
There's been trouble nearby. It's up to us to put a stop to it. We will triumph this day. I'm sure of it. They're headed to an old elven ruin, I believe. The Red Templars are involved. If we're lucky, we'll strike them all down.
Andy here for VGS, giving you a review of the Dragon Age Inquisition multiplayer features. This is the very first time that multiplayer has come to the world of Dragon Age. How it works in Dragon Age Inquisition, very, very similar to the Mass Effect gameplay of anyone who's familiar. Main lobby area, and you choose a select few classes. Warriors, mages, what's the other one? Rogues, of course. And within those classes, there's different characters that you can be. There's an assortment of different characters that you earn through gameplay. As you enter a lobby or a game, it's not like Mass Effect where you're facing rounds and rounds of enemies. You're actually going through a very sparse and very direct story area, kind of Diablo-esque. We're going down one particular path, and if you don't have one of every class, you're just not going to be able to complete it. Not only because there's certain areas you can't open unless you have access to certain classes, but it's just too damn hard. When you're loading up right away and you're level 1, you're not going to be able to clear a mission. It's not going to happen. It will be impossible to do. Fortunately, I was able to do it with a couple developers, but even then, they were levels 11 and 12, and it was difficult. I played a lot as a mage, mostly, and in that role, you're going to find yourself, just like in the main game, doing a lot of barrier keep. You're just making sure those shields are up, you're doing a lot of AoE. In multiplayer, you don't have access to the tactical view, so you have to do this all live and all right away, which is a little annoying because in the main game, playing as a mage, on one of the harder difficulties, I'm going full-out tactical, and to make this kind of fast-paced switch, not exactly the best. You know, it's playing it in a different sort of way. If you're playing the main campaign more tactically, you know that you're doing something for each character. Now you're only controlling yourself. And because of that, you have, you know, more instances where other players need to be in control, and if you aren't communicating and you aren't talking, you're just not going to get far in this game. A lot of the enemies you're facing are going to be either the Templars, the mages, or the demons, rather. And the Tevinter people, yeah. And there's 3 main areas that you go through, very similar to the Mass Effect first multiplayer campaign. And within each of those, there are 5 different features, different stages, rather, that you need to enter and clear. You can heal after each of those. You only have 5 times that you are allowed to get downed before they can revive you, very similar to any other sort of multiplayer game. After that, you die and you enter something called the Fade. Anyone that's familiar with Dragon Age knows what this is. And you become a spectator for that particular round. You're allowed to tell them, you know, where the enemies are, get some enemy info, and float around as a ghost. Can't come back until they clear that round. Now, if you do this and everyone wipes, you still do get something afterwards. You know, you are got some gold, some parts, and some items. If you do want other characters, you need to have those particular items that you then deconstruct and salvage, and from that you can buy, you know, the big two-fisted Canary. You can get the Reaver mages and all these really cool classes that are a little bit difficult to get. I really enjoyed it, but it's not like the Mass Effect multiplayer, which is, again, a lot more fast-paced, a lot more frenetic. This actually went pretty slow. Even in our most intense times, it went pretty slow, and you can do a lot of kiting to get through. It's fun, but it's still very new. There's not a lot of features for what you want to do, especially if you're a tank early on. Very, very boring. I liked a lot more playing as a mage and a ranged rogue, just because you're actually able to do a little bit more of the AoE, whereas the tank is, you know, just, you know what a tank is in these sorts of games. If you're looking for an experience that is more in line with the Dragon Age single player, it's close, but it definitely doesn't tap on everything that it should in order to still be considered, you know, this is part of the game. But it's nice to see that they're taking this step, and BioWare did a lot of amazing things with the Mass Effect multiplayer. I had a lot more fun playing the Mass Effect multiplayer, but this did take me back to the kind of Diablo style. I don't think this will work for everyone. They tried to make it that way, but Just like the game, it's kind of sitting on that fence between a more streamlined way of combat and a more tactical implementation. And unfortunately, in the single player, they kind of reach that nicely. In the multiplayer, it's not quite there yet. It was still pretty fun. Don't bother playing it if you don't have mics, though. It just doesn't work. It's not going to happen. I was with developers even, and at one point, they couldn't communicate to each other, and our party entirely fell apart. And these are people that have made this. Like, they're the producers on this, and they still had some difficulties. Give it a try. It doesn't affect the main story whatsoever. I can see how it can be just as addictive. If you saw my review for the game, Dragon Age Inquisition is the most addictive game ever made, and the multiplayer taps into that a little bit, but not entirely, you know. Just come to it with low expectations. Understand that it's not going to be the Mass Effect multiplayer. It's not the fast-paced, frenetic multiplayer that you're used to in most shooters. It's not even close to that. And I think you'll have a lot of fun, you know. You can buy into the universe. There is some bits and pieces of narrative between the two, but it's just off-key lines. It's nothing that's really... I don't even really understand why they have it there, because it's almost as if they tried to do that to give you a little bit more narrative context for the Keeper who's there and this dwarf, but they just have these off-the-cuff recorded lines that do nothing to affect the actual gameplay. Not really good, but again, it's a fun thing to do after you've gotten your feet wet with Dragon Age. Add me right away on Xbox One. We'll play, and make sure you check out my complete review of Dragon Age Inquisition.
The Smiths are already improving our equipment, thanks to these brave soldiers. I'll make sure they're recognized for their trouble.